circumstances that all got together and played out, to an industry that occupies a rather unique place in Australia too. I think that your industry is very different in the sense that you are small, medium enterprises. You're too busy, really, keeping your businesses going to spend an enormous amount of time or money in high-powered lobbying. But it's a lesson that you need to stick together as an industry, I think, in order to have influence and to know also what to give up at the right time. Now, I don't want to tell you how to suck eggs, and I know that in the activities that you've undertaken and the actions, the decisions that you've made in recent years surrounding international education, that has strengthened you as a sector together. But it should never be forgotten that politics is a very odd thing to deal with. And if I can offer any humble advice about dealing with politicians, which I've done for a long time, but from the marvellously secure position of being a journalist rather than someone who is directly affected by the decisions that are thereby made, I think that hyper-awareness of the political environment can never hurt you. When you meet with politicians or you interact with them, first think, what is the outcome that they're looking for? What are their priorities here? Because you'll get an open ear if you talk in terms that appeals to that person's priorities. You'll get a closed door if you're not making sounds that actually register with them. So I guess it's a no-brainer to suggest the sorts of themes that your industry could be playing up. Productivity is only the second most frequently repeated word in Canberra at the moment, the first being patchwork economy. You have to say that 20 times in any press conference before you're taken seriously. They take a card off you if you don't talk about patchwork economies. So I think that keeping an open ear about what politicians are looking at, what their priorities are, knowing how they'll respond in situations is always sensible. And if that comes from an awareness of what circumstances a minister is in at any given time, or if that comes from awareness of what particular policy areas are in vogue or of great appeal to a government at any given time, I think that helps you enormously. Know your environment at all times is what I would always advise anyone dealing with any politician. Now, I could dribble on indefinitely about things that I suspect you might want to hear about, but I do want to give you an opportunity to nominate some things that you actually want to hear about. So do please, are the elves still around?
Yes, they are.
I believe the elves are still delivering microphones, so if you have any questions about any particular politician or issue, or don't ask me to predict what's going to happen in the next 30 seconds, because I've learned that that doesn't work in this environment. Yes.
You'll share in this question, but it's really a triangle. It's for our Brisbane International Student Delegate. Hello, over there. Who you've been really engaged in our conference. I'd like to know because you're an international student and you've just stood and listened to Australian politics as it is, what do you think?
I wanted to ask a question, but it might stir the pot a little bit more about it.
I'll stir it, go on.
Okay.
Couldn't possibly get any sillier.
Yeah, well, as a media commentator and someone who has a lot of insight on politics, could you comment on, as a foreigner who's been living here for about 3 years, and I've lived overseas.
Where are you from?
I'm from Arkansas.
Because US politics is completely not weird, of course, so
yeah. Well,
this will be very unusual for you.
It's interesting because I've survived Hurricane Katrina and I've survived the floods here, so it's interesting to see the difference.
Should we have you deported?
I'm not on a student visa anymore, but don't tell my boss that.
Chris, let's get him sorted out. These are a threat to the population. Sorry.
Why is no politicians or no media figures really come out and made the connections and the parallels between refugees, indigenous people, and international students in terms of, we're all sort of in the same figurative boat, and no one's really made that connection.
Well, I think that the refugee debate is one that has an incredibly totemic significance in Australian politics. We're talking about a group of people who arrive in Australia by a certain means, by boat. It's a very visual sort of concept, and as a result, we are much more worried about people